The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. My name is Courtney Pollock, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator for SWK Technologies. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar, Utilizing Microsoft 365 for Security in the New Hybrid Workplace, presented by Rachel Wade of SWK Technologies. A little housekeeping before we get started. Everyone has been placed on mute to keep the background noise to a minimum. However, throughout the webinar, you can submit any questions you have. If you'd like to submit a question, look for the questions section in your GoToWebinar, and we will answer all your questions at the end of the presentation. We're also recording this presentation, and it will be distributed tomorrow to all attendees, as well as those who registered but were not able to attend. And finally, please take a moment towards the end of the presentation to answer our poll. With that said, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to attend this webinar. We're here to help you get the most out of your software solutions and help you find an easier way to run your business by providing you with tools, support, software, and industry knowledge whenever you need it. So whether you're here researching a new solution or you're just here to learn, we'd like to encourage you to ask any questions you have. And lastly, as a quick reminder, SWK is constantly sharing important updates and software tips and tricks on our social media channels. We'd like to encourage you to follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can find other videos like this. With that said, I'm going to hand it over to Rachel.
All right, thanks so much, Courtney. And thank you all for joining Utilizing Microsoft 365 for Security in the Hybrid Workplace. I'm Rachel Wade, the Junior Solutions Architect with SWK Technologies. I am Microsoft 365 certified and really excited to be going over security in the hybrid workplace with you all today. My information is listed here on the site, so if you have any questions after the webinar, please don't hesitate to reach out. All right, now just going to do a quick recap of the agenda here. I'm going to introduce the hybrid working model and the hybrid worker, and then I'll touch on the hybrid paradox and digital transformation. Then we'll discuss the three digital transformation challenges, how identity access management fits into that, Azure AD as an identity access management tool, and finally, how to utilize Azure AD. Then we'll close off with a special offer and a Q&A. All right, so just a quick overview on SWK Technologies. We're a nationally recognized managed services provider in North America, and we were able to deliver services across the entire US through our 170+ member team. With core expertise in cybersecurity, cloud hosting, managed IT, and ERP, our mission is to delight our customers and enable success. Here are just a few of our awards as well that we have recently won for being a top managed services provider. In Channel Futures 2020, and also in Channel Futures 2021 as the top managed services provider. Now, let's take a look at utilizing Microsoft 365 in the hybrid workplace. So recently, I attended a conference with Microsoft, and a participant there mentioned something that we are all quite aware of, but maybe have not acknowledged just yet. And it was, there is no going back to normal. There's only moving forward. There was a time when these hybrid work environments were considered transitory. You know, we were always looking to go back to normal. And if you remember, the question a lot of us were asking at the time was, you know, are we going back yet? And now the answer to that, like this quote, is that the hybrid work environment is the new normal. And so I want to break down what hybrid work is. So yes, what is it? Well, I can tell you that no one's hybrid work environment looks the same because every organization has different setups. You're in different industries. Just on this call alone, we've got people in the food industry, in manufacturing, logistics, nonprofits, and you all have different needs and requirements for how your employees are going to work and what a hybrid work environment will look like for you. But I do know that every company, with all of you, the hybrid work model consists of teams who work in mixed environments. Hybrid work provides the flexible environment to be able to work from home, whether that is because an employee wants to or it is a necessity. Now, not to confuse a remote worker with a hybrid worker, they are two different things. The hybrid work model encompasses remote workers, full-time on-site workers, and hybrid workers. You can have a mix of all three of these, a couple of these, or you can even be a remote-first company where pretty much everyone is remote and not required to regularly work from the company office. And of course, the business, the employer accommodates this setup. That's still a part of the hybrid work model. I do want to clarify just a little bit about hybrid workers because it's kind of like, who are these people? And a hybrid worker is included within the hybrid work model, like I mentioned. But these are the people who split their time between working at the office and working from home or another location. And it's these hybrid workers and the hybrid work model that we've shifted to, which has presented a new challenge in the workforce. And our new normal has led employees into what is called the hybrid paradox. And let me explain what that is. So according to a study done by Microsoft, 73% of workers want flexible remote work options post-pandemic. And then 67% of those same workers are craving more in-person work and collaboration as well. This is called the hybrid paradox because it does kind of seem like an oxymoron, right? Like, your employees, they want the best of both worlds. They want to be able to collaborate seamlessly, combined with the ability to work from anywhere. And the question is that how can you possibly have more in-person collaboration while still working from home? But the thing is that companies like yours have already begun this digital transformation to accommodate the needs of their employees, whether they are remote or in person. And let's cover what you've done during this digital transformation. We've seen you set up and utilize video collaboration and better messaging channels with tools like Microsoft Teams, so your employees can collaborate and meet instantly from anywhere in the world. You've added OneDrive cloud storage so that your employees can access necessary documents from any device anywhere. And those files aren't just stuck locally on a machine in case something happens. There's always a backup. You get another laptop and log into OneDrive, all of your files are there, like nothing changed. We've seen our clients implementing SharePoint to replace their on-premise file servers and to store their files securely in the cloud. And of course, I'm sure you were already using Outlook, but now you're probably sending more emails than ever before because not everyone is in the office. And Outlook integrates your meetings, your documents, and your shared and saved files for quick and easy access to work more efficiently. There are apps outside of the Microsoft umbrella that you might have deployed as well, and you're using them to accommodate today's collaboration needs for your employees. Some of those apps might be Slack, Zoom, and Gmail. But no matter which brand of tools you're using, with all change, there are growing pains and challenges that we run into. I find it interesting that while each hybrid environment is unique, there are still three main challenges with digital transformation that every organization experiences. And let's cover those. So first, we have security risk. Second, we have administrative burden. And then third, there's poor user experience. So to touch on security risk, with more people working from home than ever before, your employees are also using multiple devices to access organizational resources, which is secure information you likely want to remain private. And it's great in a way that, employees are working more efficiently and seamlessly with their tablets and phones and laptops, but the influx of devices that's retrieving your company data is overwhelming for your IT team to keep secure, which brings us to the second challenge, and they go hand in hand, and that's that administrative burden, right? So with the administrative burden, according to a study conducted by SolarWinds in January of 2020, so pre-pandemic, definitely note that, they said that 20 to 50% of all IT help desk tickets are for password resets. And as a former help desk person myself, I'm sure during the pandemic that has grown exponentially. The influx of devices that a lot of your employees are using poses several hardships for your IT team. With this use of multiple devices, employees are logging in and typing in their passwords multiple times, which leads to human error. They type in their password incorrectly too many times, or they have different signing credentials for each application. And now they've forgotten their password, so they're locked out and they're not doing any work because they're locked out. And they have to reach out to the IT team for, the 100th time to get their password reset. And beyond the password resets, which is a big issue, the influx of devices your employees are using also pose a giant security risk that your IT team is having a difficult time managing. There might not be any issues just yet, but without the proper tools and measures in place, bring your own device is a vulnerable spot for security in this hybrid workplace. And you're going to hear me say again and again, a security risk. As you noticed in these hybrid environments with more devices accessing the cloud, the security risk has just increased. And then finally, our third digital transformation challenge is the poor user experience. So while your users are loving that flexibility of hybrid work and getting to work from home, they're also getting a poor user experience at the same time. They're frustrated because the number of credentials they need to remember for every single application, every single system, right? And when they forget, you know, like I said, they send that ticket right back to your IT team to assist with resetting their password. And this decreases productivity. However, once someone gets tired of submitting enough help tickets because they can't remember their passwords, what do? They start making easier passwords, which in the tech world is we consider those weaker passwords. You know, they add 1, 2, 3 at the end, and that's it, which again is a vulnerability in your hybrid work environment. Now, it's these 3 issues that make up the digital transformation challenges. But there is one main root cause of these issues, and that is the fact that most companies are currently using inefficient systems for verifying user identity. And I thought, you know, McLovin was a great example of this, right? So the authentication method of only verifying username and passwords is like the bouncer looking at fake IDs all night and letting people in. It's like, okay, this ID says it's you. I'm not sure, but since the ID says it, let's just go ahead. And let me show you what I mean, right? Okay, so the old way of connecting. Now, this is an oversimplification of what a network probably looks like, but this does explain the point. So you have your laptop, your computer, whether you're working in the office or working from home, it still applies. So you log in into the firewall or the VPN if you're working from home. And if you're working in the office, you would log in and be on the company's internet and then be able to access the server, right? And so your credentials are authenticated with that username and password with that VPN, and you're in. The firewall doesn't actually care who you are or the identity of the user. It has the right credentials and the right parameters, and so it provides that access. Now, even before, you know, the hybrid work move to hybrid work, we were still using some cloud-based apps. You know, Outlook has always been a cloud-based, well, not always, but Office 365 has been a cloud-based service. So, and the cloud presence here, if you notice, it's small. It just has your cloud apps, but the server is much larger, right? And then we move to the hybrid way, like how it's happening now. You'll see that the cloud, I've made it much bigger here because the cloud presence has grown exponentially. And what this looks like is that you have an employee and they are they're working from home, and so they have their work computer and they're going to log into your cloud-based apps. And so they log in and they're in there, all right? And they have their cell phone and they say, okay, this is great. I want to check my email on my phone. That's convenient, and so they access the cloud. And then you have they have a tablet, and they, you know, it gives them more mobility than their desktop, but it's bigger than their phone. So they're going to use that as well to connect and access company resources. And then finally, they have their own personal laptop that they prefer, and they're going to check email, maybe log into the CRM, and so they're going to connect to the cloud. The server is still there. It's smaller just to represent that it's not as at the forefront of the new hybrid workforce now. People still use servers. They're definitely still common, but the cloud applications have overtaken that server utilization. Now, because of this, organizations have to do better with, you know, the who, what, where, when, why, and how as it pertains to allowing access to your company resources. Now, this is not something done with your typical standard IT parameters of firewalls and VPNs. In the hybrid workforce, we have to be much more creative. And because of that, there is a new control plane for user access. And I want to speak on that now. It's Identity Access Management, or IAM. And Identity Access Management provides access based on identity authentication and authorization. But what does that mean? Well, let's just take it from the perspective of with identity access management, or just when you have someone accessing your company resources, you want your users accessing your company resources at the right time for the right reasons. So your users at the right time for the right reasons, right? And Azure Active Directory is going to be the answer to those challenges that were presented just a few slides ago, those 3 digital transformation challenges. Azure AD simplified, basically. So, you know, what does it really do? So watered down to its most basic form is that Azure Active Directory is a cloud-based identity access management service that helps your employees sign in and access resources. Those resources can be internal, such as applications on your corporate network and intranet, as well as cloud apps developed by your own organization. They can also be external services, such as Microsoft Office 365, the Azure portal, and other apps used by your organization. So how does this work? Now, this image here is a little bit more for my bigger companies on this call. I'll touch on my smaller companies in just a second, but the bigger companies tend to have an on-premise AD, and they say they want to sync, get set up with Azure AD right here, right? So Azure AD, all it's doing is just making a copy of your on-premise AD. That's all. It's not a second, like a, you know, you could look at it as an extension, but it's not a separate thing. It's a copy of your Azure AD. I mean, your on-premise AD that you're hosting in your server. All right, so here's a diagram, and this one applies to my bigger companies as well as my smaller companies, and you'll see what I mean here. So you have your centralized Azure Active Directory here, and your on-premise Active Directory and your on-premise applications, which, you know, connect to that. And then you have your public cloud, which is Office 365 and other SaaS applications that you might use, goes through Azure Active Directory. And then your business partners or your vendors. These people might need to access your CRM, but they're not an actual like employee. You can still give them access through Azure Active Directory with limited permissions. And then, of course, you have your devices, your end user devices, the people who are going to go through Azure Active Directory to access the public cloud or your on-premise Active Directory. For my smaller companies, you might not have that on-premise Active Directory, and you might not have on-premise applications. But this still works. Like, to go through Azure Active Directory is just your Azure AD, and then accessing your SaaS applications is still a great solution. You know, we find that a lot of people now, smaller companies and big, are primarily using applications that are hosted in the cloud. And Microsoft understands that it's not reasonable to just offer protection on their services alone, you know, right? Because then it's not actually protection, at least not end-to-end protection. We all use different apps for different reasons. Like right now, I'm hosting this webinar on a format that is not Teams, at least not yet. That might be coming in 2022. But the point is, we are not using all Microsoft all the time, which brings me to Azure AD integrations. Earlier, I said that you are already starting, you know, the digital transformation and implemented collaboration tools. And again, those tools might not be Microsoft tools. Well, the great news is that Azure AD natively supports thousands of popular apps. And, you know, just to name a few, we're looking at Adobe, Zoom, Slack, Salesforce, DocuSign, Google Cloud, WebEx. And I'm sure you're wondering about one of the main apps you get from SWK as well, Sage and Acumatica. They do have the capabilities of integrating with Azure AD and utilizing single sign-on. There is some nuance here with the setup that I won't really go into depth with. It's simple, but just not, it's not as high level as this conversation that we're having now. But SSO for Sage and other non-Azure App Gallery applications requires federation. And if you're interested in that, please make sure to reach out to your account manager or email me after the webinar, and, you know, we can definitely discuss it. So earlier, I showed some diagrams of how we used to work and connect to line of business apps versus how we connect in the hybrid world. There's this security issue presented with so many devices and so many users connecting to the cloud. And so I want to show you how Azure AD fixes it in a hybrid environment. So this, I call him my shady user over here, just because he looks kind of shady, but he has his laptop, his tablet, his phone, and he wants to access some applications, so some SaaS apps, and he also needs to access some things on the company server. Well, and actually, let me get out my pointer here. So this is the company server with Active Directory on it, and this is the Azure Active Directory, the cloud. And these SaaS applications are kind of like those applications that I just went over in the previous slide, where you can have, you know, I mean, you see Google here. Microsoft plays nice with several different vendors. Well, with Azure and its syncing capabilities, if this user, it has password 1 right here for the cloud, and password 1 as well for the Active Directory, the server. Well, if they need to change their password, this user has to change their password, they can change it in Azure Active Directory. And then what will happen is that Azure AD Connect is going to sync with that server. And so the password is going to reflect the changes on both. which I mean is just, it is very simple and very seamless. And this is good because it gives you that one identity between on-premise and cloud apps. And you want this because the sign-in process should be the same for everyone, regardless if they're working remote or in the office. You just want a universal, this is how everyone signs on, because it's just the most secure. Now, you might say, okay, well, this looks the same as earlier. Like, I mean, it's just passwords, but don't forget with Azure, you're getting multi-factor authentication, you're getting conditional access, and you're getting single sign-on. And I'm sure at this point, we all know what multi-factor authentication is, conditional access, but I'm still going to touch on it just in case. So yeah, let's just hit that really quickly. So Azure MFA provides that added security for your users because it requires 2 or more elements for full authentication. And so 2 or more, and here's the 3 options that you have. So 1 is something you know, so your password. 2 is something you have, your cell phone. 3 is something you are, so your fingerprints, right? So as in the hybrid work world, it's really easy to get someone's password and log in. But with added authentication methods, the chances of being compromised are greatly reduced. So what are the odds that someone will have 2 of these things, right? Like, sure, a malicious actor might get your password, but are they going to have your cell phone too? And the answer is likely not. And your fingerprints, I mean, life is not mission impossible, as fun as that would be. So the chances of your fingerprints getting compromised are just, it's not likely, right? Which is why it brings those layers of security in your environment. And then conditional access. So conditional access grants access based on meeting if and then statements. So meeting conditions. If employee A wants access to the company CRM, then they must meet XYZ requirements. Okay, that sounds good, XYZ requirements. But what are those requirements? Like, what are we looking at here? So conditional access evaluates a few things. It evaluates the user. So you can say, okay, I want my user to meet the conditions of having been authenticated through multi-factor authentication. So that's the condition. If they can't do that, then they don't meet the conditions and they don't get access. It also evaluates location. So you can say, you know, our company, everyone that we do business with works in North America. We do not expect anyone from Moscow, Russia to be trying to log in into our company applications. And so you can block users from different locations with conditional access. And then there's the device, right? So I keep hammering home about how there's so many devices connecting to our cloud applications now. With conditional access, you can dictate, you know, what kind of devices are connecting. So you can say, we don't want any rooted Android phones, you know, connecting to our company infrastructure, because it does pose that security risk, right? You can say we want systems that only have updated operating systems. If it's outside of support, then we don't want that on our infrastructure, because it again creates a vulnerability. And then finally, application. So conditional access. Is this application even something that they can access? Should they be accessing it? And so yeah, that is conditional access, right? That comes with Microsoft Azure. And then finally, we have a single sign-on. And single sign-on, apps configured through SSO or single sign-on provide seamless access, because you no longer have to enter your password every time you want to access another app. Single sign-on it takes care of that. It logs in that one time, and every app that you use with those single sign-on capabilities won't have you log in again. And one of the biggest benefits, apart from the security aspect, is the increased productivity, because your users are able to hop in and out of apps, never interrupting their workflow, to try and guess which password belongs with which application, right? So the 3 digital transformation challenges solved. Now, to recap here, we had 3 challenges that presented themselves within the digital transformation. And so security risk. It's been mitigated with Azure AD by connecting and protecting your workforce, because you're able to govern their access easily within the Azure AD portal. You can set up security parameters like conditional access, require users to multi-authenticate before they can access your company applications. This in turn helps with the second challenge, and that's the administrative burden. It's been reduced. With Azure AD as your cloud-based identity access management service, it is easy to deploy conditional access, MFA, instead of mobile device management. These robust but simplistic features are going to reduce management time. And then finally, poor user experience. It's been improved. With features like single sign-on and password syncing between on-premise Active Directory and your cloud-based Active Directory, your employees are going to have a much more seamless yet secure experience. So I've made the case for why you should absolutely implement Azure AD in this hybrid workplace. Whether you are a larger company with an Active Directory and applications on-premise, or you are a smaller company with no Active Directory, and maybe or maybe not you have an application server. The features Azure Active Directory provides for securing your hybrid work environment across multiple platforms and applications while still reducing management time and frustration is almost a no-brainer. Like, I mean, it literally solves every single issue, right? But now I want to tell you why you want to choose SWK as your Microsoft provider. And there's two reasons for that. So number one, we are the one-stop shop as your ERP software and IT provider, which interestingly enough are starting to go hand in hand with this hybrid environment. A lot of you are already our Sage customers. You already have account managers that you work with and have a great relationship with. So all it takes is one simple call or email, and we can handle and support you with your end-to-end solution. And then reason number two is that SWK has a team of certified Microsoft engineers and architects on staff, like myself, who can assess your specific licensing and security needs. And I've mentioned this before, but too many times I have gotten people's licensing bills and they have all of these add-ons and duplicates and things are configured in a strange way. And by working with SWK, we will right-size you through our Microsoft assessment, right? So we'll review your licenses and determine possible optimizations. We will have a discussion with you to cover your business goals and how Microsoft 365 aligns within those goals. And then we will make our recommendation that will suit your organization the best. From the right type of Microsoft licenses, optimal security features, and an implementation plan that will fit your business, we've got it handled. And of course, our offer for this webinar is a free Microsoft assessment. If you would like that assessment, please contact info@swktech.com. You can reach out to me through my email provided earlier in the webinar. I think it's also going to be at the end as well. Or you can reach out to your account manager and we'll get you taken care of. I do want to make a quick PSA here, and that is that starting spring of 2022, there's going to be an incremental increase in the price for Microsoft 365 plans. They're raising prices across the board, and they're looking at about a 10% increase for annual plans and a 20% increase on those monthly plans. This is just a few dollars per plan, but where this really matters is that as of right now, Microsoft allows you to increase and decrease your licensing seats while paying monthly on that yearly plan. After this change, you will still be able to upgrade licenses from like business basic to business premium, but you cannot downgrade. That is why I'm just recommending to go ahead and do the free assessment with SWK to make sure that before you're locked in for a year, all of your users are on the right Microsoft plan. And if you lock in your price before the increase, so spring of 2022, then you can keep your plan at that legacy pricing. So to me, like at this point, I just think the benefits of doing the assessment seriously outweigh the downsides. I mean, it just kind of makes sense to do the assessment so that way come 2022, you're on the right plan and you're also don't have to worry about trying to change your licenses up because Microsoft's not going to really allow that anymore. But yeah, that is the conclusion of my webinar here. I'm going to pass this back to Courtney for a quick Q&A.
Thank you, Rachel. So we are going to launch a quick poll, just asking if you would like to be contacted for more information. So we would appreciate if you could answer our poll, and then we are going to open it up for Q&A after the poll closes. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and enter them into the questions section of your GoToWebinar. And we'll give it a minute for those poll responses to come through and for you to get your questions in. Okay, thanks everyone for your participation in that poll. So we're going to close it out now. And then Rachel, it looks like we've had some questions come in from the audience. The first one being, what Microsoft plans include Azure AD?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I realized I didn't mention that. So that's an interesting question because depending on how your Microsoft was purchased, or if you're looking at purchasing it, it varies if you buy it online or not. But basically, the simple answer is that Azure is built into all Microsoft 365 plans today. If you did not purchase your plan online or do not purchase your plan online. The features that I talked about that come with Azure AD, we recommend Business Premium with it, but you can get Azure AD across any M365 plan.
Great. And then it looks like we've had another question. They would like to know, is SWK able to help set up and manage these features for us, or is it something we have to do on our own?
Okay, yeah. So SWK is absolutely able to help implement Azure AD. We have an excellent account and project management team that can roll out, an Azure project to your specifications, handle the migrations, the setup, syncing, configure security, the whole deal. So we are definitely capable of getting that set up for you. As far as managing, once it's set up, if you want to be completely hands-off and allow SWK to manage your Azure Active Directory, that's something that we can definitely do. I recommend speaking with those options with your account manager. But yeah, those two, yes, the answer is yes to both of those for sure.
Great. And it looks like that's all of our questions. So thank you everyone for getting those questions in. And again, I'd like to thank you, Rachel, for such a great presentation and for taking the time to be with us today. I'd also like to thank everyone for attending our webinar, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.